Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this podcast. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. Joan of Arc. Our guest today is culture. Um, Many years helping leaders drive their team's performance, create motivation, that driving force and inspiration. Founder of Capano Speaking and Training, trained in ninja selling, host of Clarity and Action podcast, culture leader, and someone I'm very excited to learn about culture and on the Culture Matters podcast today, as well as fractional chief productivity officer. Very interesting title that I want to learn from. So, Clara Capano, thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast.
Oh,
And shout out to Marcus Ogden for making this introduction. Thank you. You're the man. What a
yeah,
great
awesome. Thanks, Jay. So excited
time.
to be here.
I was preparing for this podcast, listening to you on another podcast, and you were breaking down clarity into a like heuristic, a training essentially.
Right.
Where did that idea come from?
Well, being that my name is Clara, it was given to me by someone who I did manage, and he was kind of one of those grumpier old men who I just loved, but he was always, kind of crotchety. And he came up to me, he would always come up and be like, "Can I get some clarification from you?" And I'd be like,
Wow.
"Dude, that's so lame." And then all of a sudden I'm like, "It's brilliant," because that's exactly what I do. When people
Yes,
are
yes.
confused, when they hold back, they don't take action. And I'm a girl all about taking action, being solution focused rather than problem focused and just getting out there. And, I love your quote of not being afraid. You're going to have the fear, but letting it hold you back, that's not living. So you got to be able to do that. And then having clarity of, our vision, our why, having clarity of the skill sets we need to do, the clarity of the right actions that we have. That's how we're going to be able to go forward and, really move the needle in our lives. And then as a leader in building a culture, you've got to have that clarity of how are we going to go forward? Who do we need on the team? The communication, all of those things, because, our culture is our greatest asset.
There are doubters out there about culture being the greatest asset. Now, maybe we're biased in this, but I want to know why. Why is culture an asset? I was just asked this on a show today, and maybe I could learn a couple things from you, how to approach that.
I just firmly believe that culture leads to everything. You can get results in a negative culture, but it's never going to be at the level it can be. The truth is, when people feel good, outside of food, clothing, and shelter, connection, belonging is the fourth basic human need. And when you feel a sense of belonging, just psychologically, scientifically, our bodies, our minds, we perform at higher levels. Studies show that we are over 30% more productive when we are in a state of happiness versus stress. So, if we
Mm.
can find a way to allow our people to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of community, and feel good about what they're doing, think about if all of your employees could perform almost 40% better. You can't tell me that's not going to impact the bottom line. And I just truly believe that if you want to impact, if you want to grow that bottom line, you do it by growing your people and creating a culture that matters.
What about those that are interested in the negative culture?
Oh, go have a good time. Yeah. I'll talk to you in a few years when you're ready to get out of that because you're facing burnout and all those. I mean, I've lived in those. I have lived in cultures that, I would hear the boss coming down the hallway and the footsteps and just go into sheer panic mode. I've had jobs where I would be crying on my way to the office because I was like, I don't. That fear of is today going to be the day that I get fired? And on the other side of that, I've had cultures where I felt valued where they asked me my opinion. I'm not saying they did everything, but I knew I was there. I was a part of something. I've had somewhere I was in a bad mood, and within 20 minutes of walking in, I was laughing.
Wow.
It impacts you. And then I call it the impact ripple. Just think about this for a moment. You create a culture so your employees feel better. That's going to then drive your production level up, your profits up. Okay. So now everybody's making more money. Think about now when your people go home. How are they going to connect with their families, their loved ones, their friends? They're going to be happier. They're going to be less stressed. So those relationships are going to be better. And then think about if it's a parent. Now they're connected more with their kids. How are their kids going to show up in school? It's that ripple effect,
Mm.
and you want to start to do that because it's negative as well as positive. I would just rather be in a positive ripple.
Some of our listeners may want that positive culture, but could be doing things that might contradict it or leading to the negative. What are some, you know, behaviors or
Sure.
rituals or patterns that you've observed that
Mhm.
actually are counterintuitive to what
Right.
people that are saying like, oh, yeah, I have a great one. I want a great one. Like
Exactly.
the
And
blind
in
spots.
no, yeah, in no particular order, you have to build a culture and a foundation of trust, meaning you have to ask questions and listen. Again, I'm not saying you need to do everything, but you need to listen. People need to know that they are being heard. So taking time, slowing down, know your people as human, be more relational and less transactional with your people. Micromanaging. We're adults. We don't need to be treated like toddlers. If you hire someone to do a job, explain it, give them the direction, and then trust that they're going to get it done. Allow for open feedback, yourself included. Nobody's perfect, a leader. I remember I saw a video a long time ago and it talked about this concept of seamless leadership. The idea that when a leader actually leads, from afar, you can't tell who the leader is because everyone is the leader.
Mm.
So working with these, having just clear communication, setting clear expectations, raising the standards, not allowing. I remember one of my greatest moments as a leader, I was managing a large real estate firm, and I had one of my top producers. She was an excellent producer. She was not a great human being at the time. And
Mm.
she set the tone, and that tone alienated people. It made the staff afraid. It was not a positive experience. And finally, one day, she and I just had a discussion, and it was decided by me that she needed to leave. And she couldn't believe that I was throwing her out because how could I do that with my top producer? And I did. I said, this is just not the right environment anymore. And I was amazed at the response of the rest of the team. They started coming into the office. They became my Ravens fans. And it's like, that's what people want. But you have to be brave enough. Going back to your quote, you can't be afraid as the leader to set the tone and set the standards. And when people are overstepping those, when people are not abiding to them, it has a negative effect on the culture and then again, the bottom line.
Was there a period of time prior to that decision and interaction where you had apprehension to have the conversation? And I'm curious if so, some of the stories that you may have told yourself that our
Mhm.
audience might relate to or
Oh, yeah,
gain value
absolutely.
from. That leap from there to there to me seems
Mhm.
very helpful.
That I would be seen as a bully and that I would be seen as, that I need to be the control freak. So I thought it would be all about me. I thought the owners of the parent company would be very disappointed in me. I felt if I can't wrangle her in, I'm a failure. How am I going to make up that production difference? All
Mm.
of those things. And I avoided it for a long time. I tried to do it. I tried to placate it, and it just got to a point where it was at an impasse. And I could tell that she didn't have the respect. And at the end of the day, I had to decide I'm leading this office, and I can't lead the office if she's trying to lead me, and that wasn't her
Wow.
role. And what was I taking away from the rest of the team? What was I taking away from their greatness and their ability to serve their clients by having this?
Oh, what would you say? Right? Because our listeners that are managing their businesses,
Right. Well,
entrepreneurs,
I
they're
mean,
in
I just
this
had to
very
sit
state
there.
right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to sit there and think about what am I stealing from all the other team members that are doing the right things? I was basically telling them that they don't matter. I was basically sending the message that, treating people this way and living in panic mode and urgency, that acting like this, that was acceptable, and it wasn't. So
Mm.
you have to be brave. And I think this also goes to because we have to remember, whether we have an organization of one, you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, or one of 1,001, it's still an organization. And you have to remember the decisions you make are not about you. As a leader, you are the voice of the organization, and you have to start making decisions that are going to be better for the health of the organization. And that starts with the people you bring in, the standards that you do, the goals that you set, all of these things come back to, is this decision going to be moving the organization forward? And if the culture is not going to do that, we got to change something about the culture.
Is your take or thought process around vision?
It's everything. You can't have anything without vision because that's your compass. That's where you know what you're going to go, and that's what you have to start communicating because you want people who believe in the vision because you're all going to be different, and we love that. We want people to be different. We want them to have different strengths. But when you do a good job as a leader of communicating the vision, where we're going to go, and then also their role in helping you accomplish that vision, we get that buy-in factor. It again goes back to that belonging. They know that they're an integral part in helping us do this.
Mm.
When you look at, you know, a hotel, you know, everybody's there. Yes, it could be the hotel manager who runs it. But again, the front desk, the valet, the cleaning crew, they can't do those things unless everybody else does their part too. I can't sell out a hotel. I can't deliver. I could be the most amazing chef at a restaurant, but if the rest of the team isn't there, how is the food going to be delivered? How is the experience going to be? I'm in the kitchen, So
Mm.
again, it goes to show everything from start to finish. We are all part of a team, just like any sporting. You can't be playing individual games, a basketball team, a baseball team, any of those. You can't play individually. You have to play as a team. That's what wins champions.
What's your take on a team meeting?
I think team meetings are extremely valuable when they have structure to them. Nobody has time. Nobody needs another meeting. We don't need that. Let's go have happy hour. If we're just going to go and just go out there, let's just go have happy hour. So have structure. Have a chance to build in wins so we can celebrate wins and progress. Have an opportunity for people to participate. So it shouldn't just be the leader showing up and just spewing. Again, it should be a meeting all everybody's coming together. So again, if people aren't, engage them, ask questions, give them some thought processes. Here's a challenge that we have. How would you fix it? Bring those in so you can openly discuss issues. But I even tell people if they have a problem, bring me the problem, but do not bring me the problem unless you already have at least a couple ideas for a solution. I'm not going to say the solution's going to work, but I need you to start thinking about how you would fix it because it's their company too. So, working with together. So I think meetings are great, but they've got to have focus and structure and a strategy. What is the objective of this meeting? So everybody knows, and let's make them purposeful.
When you speak about these topics, what's the response?
I would say most people agree. They just don't know how to do it. It takes time. And, it's you're building something. You are building. And we have to remember that it's not going to happen. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to get a lot more people just like me. That doesn't always work because you
Yeah.
need people who are not you because you are already you. So that is why having the vision is so important because you hire to the vision. You hire and you look at, are they going to be a part of this? Looking at their characteristics. I mean, you don't have to hang out outside the office, but you have to respect each other. So I think it's really important. And then I think it's breaking it down to then, looking at them. If they're going to have meetings, helping them craft their meetings. So that's some of the things that I do in my workshops as we talk about what a purposeful meeting would look like. What are the components of your meetings? We might go through their team roster. Who's in? What's everybody's strengths, weaknesses? How can we get the best out of them? I'm working with the team right now, and they have what's called a scorecard. Here are the activities that the team needs to do. Well, what we forget is that each person is over a department. Each department has its own culture. So the way that one department might run doesn't necessarily mean that's the same that another department might run. So we can't give them all the same scorecard. We can go to them and say, these are the results based upon your department. How are we going to get there? And let's have them be accountable rather than me telling them what they need to do. They know what needs to get done. And then if
Mm.
they do that, they have ownership. And that's what you want, is you want people to own what they do and feel good about it. So if they say, this is what we feel we need to do to get these results, that's what we're going to hold them accountable to. That's what we're going to give them the support, the guidance, the leadership on. But let's have them create the path and be part of that creation. They may not have it all. I might have to say, well, what about this or this? But again, I want them to have an active role in creating the accountability structure.
What does having an active role do for each individual?
I think it does a lot. I think it gives them direction. I think it allows them to be heard. I think it bonds you to them and builds trust. I think it gives them safety and security. It gives them a lot of certainty, a lot of clarity, because they know exactly what they need to do. And then, again, you're working together in unison. It gets rid of the fear, because now if things aren't happening, you can sit down and say, okay, it's not happening the way that we wanted to. Is it because we're not doing it the right way? Is it because we're not doing it at the highest level that we need to? Is it that we are confused about it? And then we can go deeper into those and get further clarity in what we're doing.
Hmm. Chief or fractional chief fractional productivity. What
Mhm.
does that
Well,
mean?
most people in a large corporation, they're going to have, a chief operating officer, chief marketing officer. They oftentimes they need someone that's also going to drive the culture and production. And a lot of people have a chief people officer. They have these, but this this format that I created sort of combines it all. And I designed it backwards. I said, okay, what do people want? Companies want to make money. At the end of the day, they want to make money. How do they make money? They make money by taking action and performing. Well, how do we get the team to perform? Well, it's a combination of strong leadership, developing a people first culture, providing the support and the systems, and then having the training and the accountability. So that's what a chief fractional operating officer, kind of does, is it works with both the leadership and the team to meld them and marry them together so that we're all working in alignment.
How would you advise our listeners that are in the so they're I want your thoughts on this first. Uh, all not all CEOs are founders, but all founders are implicitly CEOs.
Hmm.
What are
I
your
think that's
thoughts?
a really interesting thing, because if I'm a founder, it's probably my vision. It's my vision, it's my idea, it's my baby. So even though I may not be a CEO in title, maybe I've given that to somebody else. Your heart's always going to be there. And I think that's always going to have you connected at a certain level and overseeing things. Because I don't
How
think you
would you
can't have that sort of buy-in without the vision. And again, if you created it, it's your vision.
how would you advise our those in the position? So how about this? How about the founder who is there is not a chief executive officer that's been
Mhm.
hired for the role of executive? There may not even be an organizational chart yet.
Right.
They're listening, there's 5 million small businesses.
Mhm.
The
Well, you hit on
majority
a
of
key
them
word.
don't even
Yeah.
have an org chart yet. But they
You hit
definitely
on
need
a
you in
really
their
key
life.
word there, and the key word that you hit on there is yet. You need an organizational chart. I'm working with the team right now, and the owner, and CEO, he's amazing, amazing vision, great energy. And because it's also his baby, he's in everything, which is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because he is so connected. He knows what's going on. The challenge is he's not getting enough of the things he needs to get done because he's doing too much. So, one of the things we're doing is we are rewriting his job description. What is his job description as the visionary, as the CEO? Because that is what he needs to do. Because even though he is the owner of the company, he is still an employee. So he has to do the job that he is hired to do because by him having his hands in everything, it's not allowing the other people to do what they want to do at the highest level. So he needs to stay in his lane and then hire the right people and have trust in those people to do their role and then report back to him.
What do you say to the people that have been told when you start a business, it's going to work for you? So
Well, I
that,
mean, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a
like,
lot of truth to that. And it depends. I mean, my son is 20 years old and he's starting his own business. And I'm like, dude, at 20 years old, yeah, your business is going to own you. This is the time that you're in the season of hustle. This is how it's going to be. I did that in my 20s and my 30s. I was hustling a lot more because I was building it. Now I am more in control and the work fits into my life. But I think you got to pay your dues at every level. And your first few years, are going to be your hardest. And that's going to be the time that is going to demand more of you. Then, once you settle in and you build the systems and you build the team, it's harmony. And I think when you talk about, the company working for you, you working for the company, to me, that makes me think about, oh, there's going to be this moment where we finally have balance. There isn't balance. Balance is momentary, it lasts for a second. What you're striving for is harmony because there may be seasons where you may need to be more involved than others. Everything evolves. So during a time of evolution, until you retire and truly give it away to someone else or sell it, you're going to have to be somewhat involved. So if there's a new project, if there's a new, product that you're launching, you might need to get more involved for a short period of time and then step back away. So again, I think it's more about the harmony.
how would you advise our listeners to begin thinking through what their job description could look like?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a combination of things. It's again looking at the company and what you feel you need to do, but it's got to be based upon your strengths. And this is where it's easy to say a CEO should do X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, if those are not your strengths or those are not things that bring you joy, maybe it's not the right thing for you. So you've also got to work with those. I know I had one of my mentors, and what he did is he just put a line, and the line represented joy. It was a horizontal line and it represented joy. And he just started writing down what are all of the things that need to get done. Do they bring him joy? Do they not bring him joy? So the joy stuff went above the line, the ones that were not went below the line. So he built his job description around him focusing more on the roles and the duties that brought him joy because again, going back to happiness, going back to feeling good, he knew he would perform at a higher level. And then he hired people to do the things that he didn't enjoy doing. So I think, again, look at the things that need to get done. Start understanding where are your strengths and your weaknesses, because so many people start to talk about, oh, get stronger, build the skill sets around your weaknesses. I don't know if I necessarily buy into that 100%, because if it's a weakness of mine, does it bring me joy? If it's a weakness that still brings me joy, then yes, I want to build that skill set because I want to get better at that. But if it's a weakness and it doesn't bring me joy or fulfillment, why do I want to strengthen it? I'm never going to like it. So give it to somebody who does find joy in that area.
How about what would you say are some signs that our listeners may need to take time off,
Ugh,
or signs that you've
yes.
observed in productive
Yeah.
performing
So
performing?
people need to understand that self-care is not selfish. It's actually the most selfless thing you can do. And you don't take time off necessarily for yourself. You do it for your team. You do it for your company. We all have heard these saying that when you're on the airplane and the oxygen masks come out and all that kind of stuff, we have to put it on. Well, I have a different take on that. And if you look at the human body is filled with organs. It is the role of the heart to pump blood to all the organs in the body so that they can operate. Which organ do you think the heart pumps blood to first? A lot of people say the brain.
On itself, maybe? I don't know.
Exactly. The heart pumps blood to itself first because if the heart doesn't have fresh oxygenated blood, none of the other organs will either. This is why, as leaders, it is critical for us to set the expectation and the standard that taking time off is required because people work better when they are filled. You cannot show up the way it is when you're depleted. So you take time off so that you can work at your optimal level to lead others to their optimal level. Because if, as the leader, you're not taking care of yourself and you don't take time off, your team is going to not want to take time off. And it again has that ripple effect going in. So you do it. I remember when I started doing this, and I didn't, and I had a major bout of breakdown and went through a bad divorce, all these things. So I started saying I need to start taking care of myself. And one of the things that I did was go to yoga. So I would go to a yoga class and I would go in the middle of the day. I'm an early bird. I'm up early. I usually was at my office 7:30 in the morning, would stay there until 5 o'clock at night, had an hour commute back home. So I would go and I would take an hour and a half, 2 hour lunch, and I would go to yoga. And people would come up to me and they'd tease me, "Oh, where are we going now? Oh, look at you, fancy with the hour and a half lunch break." And I was like, "Oh, no, no. You all need me to go to this class because you need how I come back." And they're like, "You know what? You're absolutely right. And we should be doing it too." And it really set the stage. And I would let my team do it too. I was like, "Okay, your lunch break's an hour. I don't care if you take an hour and 10 minutes, just communicate." It's like if you need that extra 10 minutes, take the extra 10 minutes, but you got to communicate and your work still needs to get done.
I was going to ask how can you communicate the time off so it doesn't represent or contradict the core values?
Well, I think again, you have to look at what your core values are. If core values are, more negative, that's going to do it. But if your core values are family, if your core values are teams, if your core value is service to others, you have to make sure that your actions feed into those things. Integrity, doing what you say. So if those are it, then you have to let them know and saying, okay, well, how are you going to meet these core values? Well, you can't do them if you're not taking vacation. You can't do these if you're not showing up the right way. And so being able, and this is why going back to one of the earlier questions you asked is, what should a leader be doing? And I said, they need to be paying attention to your people. Look for these things. Are they off? Do they seem grumpier than usual? Are they showing up later? Are there more mistakes in their work? Are they missing deadlines? These are all key indicators that they might be a little overwhelmed. Also look at and understand, how do they replenish themselves? For some people, it's going on vacations. For others, it's going to the gym. For some, it's getting a good night's sleep. So look for ways to support them in that. If they need a day off, I get, and again, I know we have to have our guidelines and we don't want people to abuse it. But you know what? If they need a time off, let them leave an hour early. I mean, if they're doing their job, those are small ways that we can reward them that actually go a long way. What is it that they need? I learned this a long time ago when I was doing Christmas bonuses. I just assumed everybody would want money for Christmas. And I'm like, I'm giving them a great Christmas bonus. Well, that wasn't. Some of them wanted the money. Some of them wanted a half a day off so they could go Christmas shopping. Some of them wanted to have the day before off because they always drove to go see their family and it was an 8-hour drive. So, what is it your people want? You know, Maybe reward them that way. And again, let them feel that they're being heard.
What's some practical advice you'd have for our listeners that the small, maybe it's a smaller enterprise, they don't have a human resource department paying attention to each person's
Yep.
ratios, how to know about the people?
So, one, again, talk to your people, you know, spend time with them, you know, If you can go to lunch or coffee, or again, if it's a slower day, sit with them. Find out, what's going on with their family? What do they like to do for hobbies? What's important to them? Do they have pets? And then use those as connection pieces. How's the kids today? You know, oh, did you go camping this weekend? Were you able to get out and play volleyball or go skiing this weekend or whatever it is? If they love a food, did you try any new restaurants lately? Knowing them, people, it's the old adage, people don't care about you until they know how much you care about them. And the truth is when you value your people, when you know them as a human and you respect them on that human level, again, being relational, not transactional, your people will go to the ends of the earth for you. They're going to go to the ends of the earth for each other. And that's what you want. And again, it could be little things. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Most people don't need things. I'm just a firm believer in this. I don't think people leave because of money. Money's key. We need money. I get it. But I know many, many people, myself included, they will take a job that doesn't pay them as much, but they feel valued. They feel important. Or the flexibility is better. So there's a lot of other things. It's not always just the price point. You have to look at the whole package that you're delivering, and culture is a part of the package. Going back to it's our greatest asset. Sometimes we can't compete on income. We can't compete on salary, but what we can compete on is culture.
How does the C-suite, as you see it, undermine the human resource department?
I think again, it's some of the micromanaging. I think many times human resources gets a bad rap of being sort of the police, and they always have to have the regulations, and they're the ones that are always like, "Oh, we can't have any fun." And no, that's not always the case. It's not easy to always have to be the rule followers and the rule makers. They're doing these to again create a healthy environment. Let's look at the term human resources. So we need to be tapping into that. So again, bringing them in. How can we build engagement? If these are the rules, if these are the guidelines, what can we open up on? Where can we give a little bit more? If we have to be constrictive in these areas, where can we be a little bit more open? What are some things that we can do to make it fun? There's a lot of little things you can do. Handwritten notes for your people, have an office party, do contests, bring in sponsors, you know, bring in speakers. There's people out there that you can bring in to speak to them. I mean, there's so many things that you can do to have fun. I've had leaders that have done pancake breakfast and they're the ones serving the breakfast. Break bread with your people, bring them over to your house, go have a barbecue. You don't have to pay for it. You can just all say, hey, let's all meet up at the park. Everybody bring something to grill. I'll have a grill there. Bring whatever you want. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You just have to spend attention and time.
How about the um uh, you, Clarity and Action?
Yes.
When did you start your podcast?
Well, I've been doing a podcast since 2020. COVID allowed me to do a lot of these things that I've always wanted to do. So I started it, and when I began it, it was more women focused. It was called Women Winning Their Way. I just wanted to have a platform where professional women could come together. And then as things started to evolve, and as the landscape of the world changed, I just decided I wanted something that was going to be more inclusive and involve everybody and just create a platform. So I just relaunched it in April of this year, actually, and it's now Clarity and Action, where we're having conversations that change perspectives and drive action.
And is it monologue or co guests
Yes.
as well? It's a
Well, I'm always have
combination of
guests.
the.
Yeah, I have the guests because I want to bring on
Oh,
guests that have different perspectives. I want to be able to break myths. So, sort of like again, I had a lady on talking about forgiveness and understanding how as a leader, forgiveness is key for ourselves, for our team, and how that builds more trust. I've had people that have been on talking about communication and how we can, increase communication, leveraging remote teams and some of the myths and some of the truths of getting engagement with a remote team. So it's really around the heart of leadership, entrepreneurship, and just how we can show up more human, how we can show up and build that foundation of clarity in everything we're doing so that we all can grow
mm.
stronger.
The statistics are showing that people by and large, are staying at companies for less time.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that? What opportunities do you see in that for your line of work? What
Um,
concerns, if any at all, and how can
yeah, it's,
organizations build trust with that?
we're not in the day and age where people stayed at their company for 50 years. And on some level, I love it because it's allowing some people to get in to make the money that they need and then go and do their passion project in their 50s. And I think that's wonderful. I do think we are missing something. I think people too much are leading again with the money, and we're having too much turnover, and it's stressful. Turnover costs a company a lot of money. And I think if they could do a few minor things, they can create it and extend that. They may only extend it a year, 2 years, but if you can get your people to stay, the residuals and the profit that you're going to maintain are going to start to show. And, again, you're always going to have turnover. And again, it depends. A restaurant's always going to have turnover. Things like that are always going to have, because those are the types of ones. But when you are in a higher level company, you really want people that are going to stay. And that's why I think the vision, the culture, the way that we show up and lead, the way that we can provide benefits. And when I benefits, again, it's the whole package of what we're bringing. It's going to help to allow it. I was just talking with someone today, and he and I were talking. He's like, I love this company. I've been here for 13 years. I want to be challenged more because I've hit a peak. I've hit a plateau. I don't want to leave. Find a way to make me stay. Go and talk to your people. What would it take to keep you to stay? Let them know they're valued.
Why is turnover costly for a company?
Because you got to think, you get them in, you spend time training them. It takes 6 months, a year to get somebody up and running. And then if they leave, you've got to recreate all of that, go through all that growth again. You might have severance that you have to pay out, but there is a lot in if you then hire someone to recruit. Let's say that you have an opening a month or two where you don't have a position filled. That work still needs to get done. So it's going to be pushed on to the other people, meaning that they're probably going to be less efficient. Deadlines are going to stretch out. So it can affect it in so many different ways.
Hmm. How have you seen like top managements compromise or like make okay, so here you see oftentimes it's the values, they're just on the wall. Why is that said? Why do the values lose their value?
Because people don't act in accordance with them. Values need to be guiding posts that we live by. They should not just be words on the wall. So, as a leader, it starts with you. What are you going, because as a leader, you created those core values. So, are you leading by them? Then it goes to your team. You need to explain to them in your role, how are you going to live these values? And if people step out, you need to call them on it and be like, what? Not in public, this is a one-on-one conversation, but bring them in and being like, what? One of our core values is this. When I didn't see you putting this into play, let's talk about this, because you have to do it, because again, you have to set the standards. And if you let people step out of the values and not live in the values, now you've just set the standard that the value is not important and it's no longer a core value.
How about when those that hire in authority, so higher in the hierarchy of the organization,
Mhm.
they're not calling it out,
Well, that's
but
usually what
those
happens.
underneath are.
Oh,
What
that's usually
impact
what
does that
happens.
have on people?
It's usually the
Huh,
upper leadership that stops living in accordance with the values. They set the
yeah,
modeling, so then other people stop doing it. This is where, going back to
yeah.
something that we talked about earlier, you got to have checks and balances. You have to have trust. With the leaders that I like to work with, even though there might be that one
Yeah.
CEO or whatever, remember, we're all part of a team. And we have to come from a place of love and respect for one another, that we give each other permission to call ourselves out on it. You have to be able to allow for healthy
Oh,
conflict.
what are some reasons why those that are listening to this that are in the position of ultimate leadership or penultimate leadership wouldn't want feedback,
Because feedback can
honesty.
be hard. It can be negative. You don't want someone to tell you that you're not doing a good job. You don't want someone to tell you that you made a mistake. But you know what? You're going to fail. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to say something thinking it was fine, and all of a sudden somebody's going to be offended by it. You didn't mean it, but you know what? Own it and then learn from it and say, okay, maybe I delivered that the wrong
Mm.
way. Understand it, apologize for it, and then say, how can I deliver it better next time? You can't be the weakest link because an organization will only be as strong as its weakest link. Jim Collins wrote that in his book, Good to Great. Well, you can't be the weakest link. And if you do not hire people and give them the permission to call you on when you are being the weakest link, your company's never going to be great. Your company is great because you are great. And a great person realizes that they're not imperviable, that they are human and they are going to make mistakes just like everybody else. And when we can show that we make mistakes, when we can show that we fail and how we come back from it, that's integrity. That is what our people need to see.
What role, in your view, do the helping professions play in all of this? Helping professions as in coaches, executive
Oh,
coaches,
yeah, I think
advisors,
they're integral.
consultants.
I think they're absolutely important because you're never going to get a full picture on your own. You need to get perspective. So whether it's an accountability group and maybe you have like a mastermind group that you get with and you share your business plans with and you go and you sort of meet on a monthly basis, whether you hire in an executive level coach to help you, whether you go and get a therapist, whatever it is, you need to get perspective. And those outside perspectives are going to let you see missed opportunities. They're going to call you and let you see your blind spots. They're going to challenge you. And sometimes the challenge is so that you can prove how bad you want it. You know, sometimes you've got to go in and you've got to break it so you can rebuild it stronger. So they're going to allow you to do that. And when it's tough, they're going to be in on your side saying, "You know what? I got you. I'm here right by your side. We're going to get through this together."
What are you excited about in 2026?
Oh my God. I was so excited to go into this year and next year. I feel very optimistic. I feel more optimistic because I think people want a change. I think people want the help, and I think people are ready to invest in it because I think people do want to do better. I think at the end of the day, people do want to go home and feel proud of the work that they do. I think we are lacking that connection. So I'm really excited when I talk with people and have opportunities, whether it's at a conference or doing a corporate workshop, to bring people together and see them get that unity and get that engagement back. It just feels lighter, and you can feel it when you walk in an office, when you see people and they're happy to see each other, and they want to help each other. It's getting us a little bit back to sort of how we were as kids, where we would go and help everybody out. That old book, Everything That You Needed to Know You Learned in Kindergarten. Well, there's a lot of truth to be said about sharing and helping each other and,
Hmm.
supporting each other and playing on the playground and all of those things.
It's asked a lot on the show what culture is. Is there a working definition that you've used to conceptualize and make it and help and make it? Because you said building, right?
Yeah.
It's a cathedral, not some bricks and mortars.
Yeah.
The
I haven't really thought of a construct like that. I mean, the analogy and the vision I always go to is a flock of geese. If you think about it, you know, they they can go 64% further when they fly together. So don't we want that? They honk at each other. They're not honking, they're not bullying each other. They're actually honking to encourage, saying, I see you, I got you. Hey, let's pick up the pace here. Hey, I'm here for you. So shouldn't we be honking productively and paying attention? If they switch off leaders, When the lead goose gets a little tired, they fall back and another one comes in. Shouldn't we be doing that? There's a time for one person to lead. There might be a time for another person to step up because that's their skill set. So I think again, learning from those things and just watching and paying attention, but we can only go if we do it together.
What about your own self-development, reading audiobooks? Is that been a part of your, yes, you did your schooling with a emphasis on organizational leadership, correct? Your MBA later
Yep.
in your career. That's, I think, a highlight. But what about reading
Yeah.
informal, books
I
you'd recommend or
spend,
things?
yeah, I spend at least an hour a day in development, whether it's reading books or podcasts and constantly learning. I have genuine curiosity, so my podcast is another way for me to learn. But I believe that success leaves clues. So I love to learn from others that are having success. I'll always bring it in and make it my own. But I think it's important, and being having a growth mindset and really understanding the concept of learning and growing stronger, it's key. It energizes me. It gives me, again, new perspectives. It gives me new ways and better ways to serve those that I'm able to work with.
That's just so excited because I just recorded a show today about curiosity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's but were you always a learner or did that
I
come
was.
later?
Yeah. I always was a learner. I was actually joking with my mom and talking with her. There's four siblings in my family. I'm the youngest of the four. And we were joking because my parents are both very academic. My father was a professor. And so I
Ah,
kind of said like that was my thing. Academics was going to be my thing, whereas my brother was the jock, one of the sisters was the cheerleader, so it's like my thing was going to be academic. So I think I always have loved learning. If I could, I would be a professional student for the rest of my life. I'm one of those people where I would actually write term papers for my sister because she didn't like doing them and I would love doing them. So I would write her papers for her. And I do.
what role or yeah, what role do you see that playing in your role as a advisor,
Mhm.
mentor, coach to your clients?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really exciting because I think I'm always coming in with fresh, new perspectives. So my thoughts don't get stale because the way of doing things 15 years ago, it might need to evolve so we can look at new perspectives. So I think it allows me to just bring more engagement and just different ideas. I think it keeps me happy and excited. So my energy is, at a different level.
Yeah.
I think it shows people the importance because if I'm still showing that I'm learning, again, that's one of my core values. So if I'm modeling my core values, that's going to pass on to the people that I work with as well.
Uh, Clara, I can't wait to have you back. This is amazing. I've challenged the listeners, so it's Clarity and Action is your podcast. They
Is
can
the
go
podcast. And
subscribe
it's
to
then
that.
again with my name, Clara TY. So it's Clarity.
Outside of subscribe to the podcast, which I would urge the listeners to do so. Best way to get in contact with you, they want to bring you into their organization for a workshop. They're
I
dying
would
to get,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So how do they get in contact?
I do. I offer in person as well as virtual. Sometimes I know, it's easier to do virtuals, and I really just want to be a resource to people. So even if they just want to talk, I always offer, a free clarity call so that we can just help because I just want to help people and deliver value. And if I deliver good value, that's what leads to all the other stuff. But they can go to my website, which is just claracapano.com. And I would say the social platform I am most prevalent on is going to be LinkedIn.
Please, if you're listening to this, share this with someone that has the wrong idea of how to do business and share this with a friend. You might just change their life and all the other people's lives that work for their company. I think it was told to me last year that every employee impacts at least four people in their life. So send this to someone that needs to hear it or can get it in front of someone that can change their life. Clara, thank you so much for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. I have a lot to think about. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.